Hey, so Eric was sharing with you a little bit about Advent. Advent is a season of preparation. Christians do a lot of different things during that time. Christians fast. It's like a mini Lent. It's like a 20-day fast instead of a 40-day fast. So you can be ready for the feast that comes on Christmas. I've been trying to fast. I've been trying to lose weight. You know, we have always had the head-on camera here in the sanctuary. Now we got the side angle cameras, and I'm noticing I'm a little portly these days. And you've probably noticed for a long time because you can see me this way, and I usually see me this way. So I'm trying to fast, and I'm trying to do like this intermittent fasting. Have you tried that? Have you heard about that? It's like all the rage, I guess, right now. We've gone through what was keto, and then there was one before that was like paleo, and then there was one before that was like, I don't know, Dianetics. No, that's a religion, right? I don't know. Anyway, and it's really interesting because you set aside a period of time where you fast, and then you eat. So it's like if you do a 12-hour fast, you do it overnight like you're sleeping. And I guess the positivity of just knowing that you're not eating while you're sleeping helps you to lose weight. I don't know. But but it takes a little preparation if you do more than 12 hours because you have to kind of think about what you're doing and what you're eating. And Advent is a season of preparation, right? It's a season of preparing for what's to come. And sometimes we get caught up in we get it backwards. I don't know about you, but when Thanksgiving is over and all the Christmas lights go up and the Christmas tree goes up and we start talking to the kids about Christmas and about the coming of Jesus, it's a historical event. Absolutely, that's true. But Advent isn't necessarily about celebrating the historical event. Advent is about celebrating God in our midst, in our presence, and God coming in the future, right? So we talk about the baby Jesus, the incarnation of Christ that came 20,000 years ago. Oh boy, 20 years ago. Let's get this right. We're in 2020. So the birth of Jesus was 2,020 years ago, give or take, and we're celebrating that God broke into the world, but God broke into our lives, and we have a testimony about that. We have a testimony about how Jesus changed us. We have a testimony about how Jesus changed us, but also can change everyone else around us. We have a testimony about how if you live in a dark place or if times are tough, Jesus can bring you peace. Jesus can bring you joy. Jesus can bring you hope beyond hope. It's such a powerful, powerful thing. But often we get caught in the past, celebrating what God did 2,020 years ago. Here's our scripture reading this morning. And we're starting intentionally with this text. Is Jesus, at the end of his life, right before he went to the cross, he was informing the disciples, you and me, anyone, a Christ follower, he's informing us. He says, but in those days, following the distress, and he's talking about the second coming of Christ. He's talking about when God redeems the entire world, when he redeems creation and creates this perfect paradise. He says, all this stuff's going to happen. But in the days following that distress, because it'll be distressful, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. You know, sometimes Denise and I have had, I think we've had 4 kids. And when we were having the kids, we especially our first one, we did the whole Lamaze thing, like the breathing and all that at the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and there were people there. So forgive me if I offend you, I might. There were people there who were like, oh, you know, hey, how are you? Yeah, we're pregnant. And that just bothered me a little bit because I was never pregnant. And something in me, now I get it. So if you have said that, it's okay. But something in me, like my wife is going through so much. Her body's changing. She's gonna give birth, and I love the way the Bible talks about birth. It's travail. Like it's like this painful groan, like it's just hard. And I knew that was coming because the lady that was doing our Lamaze class like scared us to death, I think. But to say we're pregnant, she was going to go through so much more than I was in that moment. I just got to sit there and smile and say, keep going, honey, you got it, right? You got this. Sometimes, so Jesus says, in those days following the distress, he's taking the birth pangs of a whole new creation from a mom's perspective on the birthing bed. And we often take it from the dad's perspective. Right? The dad, if you're a mom, my perspective, I'm not going to put all dads in the category, but my perspective from the birthing bed was, this is a little awkward because my mother-in-law's here, but it was nice. She was there as support, right? But it was awkward for me, and I'm really excited to see my daughter. I'm so excited. And my wife is on the bed, gripping with all of her might, trying to make it happen. She's in the distress of the moment, and I'm in the joy and anticipation of what's going to happen. Jesus says, in the days that are to come, where the glory happens, where God's might is shown at its greatest moment, at its highest peak, at the pinnacle of pinnacles. He says, following that distress, the sun and the moon will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars in the sky will fall, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. It's a powerful time. It's an incredible time. But it's not necessarily today, this Advent, a message about the stars falling from the sky and the moon not shining. It's a message for you who might find yourself in distress. It's a message for you who might be struggling to find meaning in life. It's a message about how God can take the travail of life at times, in those times that we face travail, in those times where we suffer, and can change everything. That's the message of this amazing thing that Jesus is about to initiate. At that time, the people will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory, and he will send his angels and gather his elect from the 4 winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. Did you ever think that your problem was too big for God? Or do you ever wonder why God wasn't answering you? Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that the summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Verse 30, truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until these things happen. There's a lot of theology around that you can Google. When I read that for me, God's not talking to generations of people over thousands of years in the grand scheme of things. Jesus is talking to the disciples about what will happen, but about what is happening. That's the great thing about prophecy. Prophecy can happen thousands, hundreds, tens of years later, and it'll be true as true. But it also is relevant in the here and now. So in the here and now, in this generation, in your life, what is it that God is doing? Because it's powerful. It's as broad as the earth is from the heavens. It's as amazing as the sun being darkened and the moon not giving its light and the stars falling from the sky. It's amazing what God has for you. Because His word never passes away, and it's true. And He tells us this generation will certainly not pass away until these things have happened. He's got you in His hand, and He's got something for you. So that's all bonus and setup for the real message. Are you ready? So the scriptures go on, verse 32. But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So He tells us, He says, be on your guard, be alert. You don't know when that time will come. It's like a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servant in charge, each with their assigned task, and tells the one at the door to keep watch. Therefore, keep watch, because you don't know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening or at midnight or when the rooster crows or at dawn. If he comes suddenly, do not let him find you sleeping. What I say to you, I say to everyone, watch. When you had Thanksgiving this year, what did you do to prepare? Did you go to the store? Did you make a list? Did you think about what special foods you had to have because they're family traditions? Did you, maybe you were with family and you went and got COVID tested ahead of time. Maybe you had to quarantine so that you could, there are so many things that go into the preparation, and then you start the meal, you start to cook, and the turkey goes in first, and then everything else has its own separate cook times, right? So you're kind of lining it up to make sure it all comes out at the right time, and everything's all on the table and hot and warm for everybody, and then you eat. And in the midst of all of that, you create a wonderful environment for the family to come together and to celebrate Thanksgiving. Isn't that great? Did you enjoy that? But then what's next? the football game, kick your feet up, chatting with your relatives. All that's good. But who cleans up the mess? I don't like cleaning up the mess, so I cook. That's part of my marital agreement, right? It was right in the vows. I will cook and you clean up after me. And I make the biggest mess when I cook. I don't have enough counter space, and the dishes are just, and God bless Denise, because she comes in and she just, in a half hour, 45 minutes, it's back to normal. But who cleans up the mess? When I was in college, I shouldn't, even today, right? I don't know, maybe you're like me. When you have stuff to do, something big, a big project or an important thing, for college is the best example, or high school, because it's the end of the semester and it's exam time. And I went to Seton Hall, and they would give you a reading week before exam time. So the reading week was supposed to be 4 days of partying and 3 days of study. No, I'm kidding, right? You're supposed to take that whole week and prepare for your exams and write your papers and do everything that needs to be done. But I had this weird thing where I couldn't even start until everything was picked up, cleaned, and in its place. Everything had to have an order to it before I could start the real work. It's kind of like the Thanksgiving preparation, right? You can't start cooking until you do the shopping, and you can't shop until you have a list. And you can't make the list until you envision what you want to have and how and maybe you need to look up recipes or talk to relatives and figure out how they cook. Like, there's all this preparation that goes into actually cooking the meal. And there was all this stuff that I had to do prior to getting to the point where I could even focus on studying or writing or researching or doing the important thing. How do you prepare for what's coming? If you know that no matter where you are today in your life, that God has something planned for you in the future that's incredible, that's wonderful, that's joyful, that's peaceful, how do you prepare for it? What goes into cleaning up the mess to get down to the real work of celebrating what you know is coming? The hope, the joy. And then when it comes, you're ready to walk into it. I'm a sports person, and my wife is a dramatician. She's a drama person. And we got married having conversations and debates about what's more important, sports or drama, right? And I always win, because sports are about concrete scores, not subjective artistic taste of judges, right? So, and she would tell you the opposite, that she always wins because life is not about playing a game. It's about the subjectivity of people and community and relationships, and drama is about the art of exploring and expressing that and helping others to connect to it, right? So there's a both and there, because in life, you know, it is about practicing to get into a game, to play a game, to play with each other. Sometimes it gets too nasty. We see that in poor sportsmanship, when people aren't shaking hands, when the game becomes more important than the relationships. I love pro sports. I love baseball. I love football. I cannot understand how they can be paid so much and be bad sports about it. Like, if you're going to pay me $10 million a year, I'm just happy to be playing for $10 million a year. You know, like I don't get it. But that aside, in sports, you prepare by practicing and getting fit for the game, right? You practice and practice and practice. You practice your strength training. You practice. You watch other teams and know the other players, and you listen to your coach, and you're preparing for battle. And you get fit for that. In drama, I'm going to try and say this as nice as I can. You prepare to act, but that's not really what I mean. You prepare to understand and to portray life in all its drama, because life is dramatic. So is football, but life is dramatic. And sometimes the art of drama can help us find the expressions and the emotions that we need to move through certain situations that we all deal with. The actors go through all kinds of preparation so that they know their lines. They read their lines. Once they get their lines down pat, then they go through this whole process of emoting the right way and being in the right spot and blocking, and all this stuff goes on. And maybe you've been part of that, but they know their lines. They know what they're supposed to say, when they're supposed to say it, in the situation that they find themselves in. An athlete practices and gets fit so that when they are in the right place at the right time, they have the right strength to overcome the situation in which they're finding themselves in. I think if you take those two together, you hear what Jesus is talking about as he says, watch. He says, you've got to prepare and practice. You've got to get engaged and be fit. When the owner goes away, he says the servants of the house are to take care of the house, and somebody watches the door and waits for the owner to return. And the servants of the house are doing their jobs. They've been trained to do certain things. They've been gifted in life with different talents. And they're using them. They're not taking a study week and partying for 3 or 4 days or 5 days or 6 days and then cramming in. They're doing what they're supposed to do. But Jesus knows our human hearts. He knows our human behavior. He knows humans better than we do. And I think he's given a little warning, because he knows that, if we take our eye off the ball, we might get too laxed. He says, don't do that. Take the gifts that God has given you. Use them. Engage in spiritual disciplines. Pray and fast and read the scriptures and share your testimony. Not only do you need to be fit for the battle, for the game of life, and you have to stay fit. You don't have pro athletes just, I can only imagine like football players only working out between like April and June with weights. And then playing the full season. Like, they're working out all the time. We're called to do that. We're called to be in prayer all the time. Thanksgiving is a great reminder for us to have thankful hearts. And, you can thank God for your parents. You can thank God for your children. You can family. You can thank God for all the blessings you have and the freedoms and whatever you want to thank God for. But do you thank God just on Thanksgiving for being God? Or do you do it every day? You know why my younger brother's the favorite? Really? Because he tells my parents all the time how much he appreciates them. He's such a good guy. Not just on Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving, he was setting an example. How many of us take the time every day to thank and appreciate God in the good times and the bad times? Get fit and know your lines. Actors know their lines. They memorize their lines because somebody wrote them down. The actor is just acting out what was written down and is being directed. But there's a story that goes behind what's going on in the emotion when you watch the show. And the actor needs to know the lines and emote and act the way that the director is showing it so that it connects with you, so that you can understand and feel what's going on. Jesus, when he's talking to the disciples and he's saying, watch, he's telling you to know your lines. Not only be fit, but to know your lines. Do you know what your lines are? Your lines are your testimony. Your lines are your thankfulness to God. Your lines are being able to sit across. Did you know that a lot of theologians and cultural sociologists are calling the time we're in. When I went to seminary too many years ago, we were postmodern. Do you know what they're still calling it now? The generation, the culture in the U.S., post-Christian. Do you know what that means? That means that it's not that we don't know Jesus. It's not that we don't know about Jesus and all that he did. We even know the stories. It's not that we don't come and baptize our kids and have a pastor marry us, or we do a marriage and we say a prayer, or and we have a funeral and the right words are said and everybody talks about how wonderful a person they are. It's not that we don't know who God is. Do you know what post-Christian means? That God just doesn't matter. Wait, have you heard that? Maybe you believe it, or maybe you felt it. That God doesn't matter. Sit with that for just a second. How do you argue against that? How do you challenge someone when they say, it just doesn't matter? God's irrelevant. Hey, you know what? For some people need religion. But God there's a God, but yeah, there's Jesus. But it doesn't matter. This is where knowing your lines is important. How do you help someone understand? And in a few weeks after Christmas and Epiphany, we're going to get into a sermon series addressing what is Christianity and religion from the beginning to where we are today, to help you to understand how people can be in it doesn't matter atmosphere, and in a culture and an attitude. But that's coming. In a nutshell, if you know your lines, and they're not like drama lines, they're not like acting lines. It's your testimony. How has God reached into that dark place in your life and changed you? And was it dark enough and the change powerful enough that you know how to talk about it? That you can say, look, you might not think it matters, but I know how dark life can be. And it's not just me. I'm not ignorant. I know there are tons of people around here that live in a dark pit. And it hurts. And they don't have any value, they don't see any value in life. And they've given up on God. But let me tell you that I've been in the darkest pit, in the darkest place. And when I hear that song that we sung earlier, where God never gives up, He never gives up. He will make a way if you just let Him. Let Him. My brother has a great relationship with my parents because he thanks them. He appreciates what they gave him and what they continue to give him. And they're not giving him money and stuff. They don't even live in the same state. But it's the relationship that he appreciates. It's the love that they have for one another. It's the fact that no matter who he is, no matter what thoughts he might have, they still love him because he's theirs. In those final days, Jesus says, in those final days of distress, you got to remember. You got to remember how God changed your distress to joy, how God can take you out of the hardest, most difficult place and birth the greatest thing that you can imagine. You got to remember that even in death, God creates life. Yes, physical death. But, there's a lot of people out there that walk around like zombies because they're dead inside. And you don't matter to them, and their parents don't matter to them, and everybody doesn't matter to them, and there's no relationships, and God doesn't matter. God can bring life. So Jesus tells his disciples, he's like, look, watch. Stay fit. Get fit. Do your spiritual disciplines. Have a heart of gratitude for the life that you've been given. And know how to talk about who God is and what God has done in your life. And do it. Share it at Thanksgiving. Share it at Christmas. And here's the thing. If you got to clean up the mess before you can get to the good stuff, Advent is the time to clean up the mess because the company's coming. You got, if you need, I don't know how you do it. If you need to get on your knees and pray for miracles in your life to clean up your mess, do it. If you need somebody to pray with you, I'll pray with you. There are people here who will pray with you. If you can't get to the point where you do your spiritual disciplines and you share your testimony with people because there's so much mess behind you and there's so much baggage and you aren't in the place to do that, clean up the mess. Don't get caught partying, during reading week, right? Because the test's coming. The test is coming. You want people to be changed in your life? Do you care enough about your children or your parents or your relatives or your neighbors to invite them into a relationship with a God who can change their lives, not temporarily, but permanently? A God who is incredible, matchless, a God who can reach into their darkness and pull them out. And you know what? Sometimes darkness looks like light to people. Affluence is a poison that we live with all the time. Bigger houses, better cars, more money. Everything's good, just like the Kardashians. It's a mess. Clean up your mess. Get fit. Know your testimony. And keep watch. Because God loves you. God has you in his hands. You remember a few weeks ago, right? He has you written on the palm of his hand. Never to forget. And he wants the best for you. Trust him. Give him your heart and your gratitude. Okay, so what do you need to do, right? If you're like me, you need to clean up your mess. You need to get fit. Do your spiritual disciplines. You need to know your lines, right? Know your testimony. Be able to talk about God. And keep watch.